Since Peter Obi sat down with Seun Okinbaloye on Channels TV, social media has been on fire. APC says it was a disaster. Obi supporters say he won. But after watching the entire interview, I think everyone is arguing about the wrong thing.
Seun, if I'm president today, most of the things you're seeing in our polity will not exist. I will encourage strong opposition parties to emerge. I will remove some of the restrictions that are happening today, where even the regulator INEC is interfering in party activities. Their job will be strictly to ensure that they conduct free, fair, and credible election. The parties are free to choose who is their candidate, who they want to present, and I will ensure that once after election, I will take the law to the National Assembly. After election, you cannot change your party. You can only change your party during the election. After election, if you change your party, the party that won that election will replace you.
There's an old saying in politics: perception isn't always reality. Over the last few days, Peter Obi's interview with Seun Okinbaloye on Channels Television has generated enormous debate across Nigeria. Supporters praised him, critics tore into him, and the presidency went as far as describing the interview as a PR disaster. But here's the bigger question: did the interview actually change anyone's mind? Or are Nigerians already judging politicians by something much bigger than television performances? Today, let's examine the interview, the reactions, the politics behind those reactions, and what it might tell us about the road to 2027. I will tell you why this interview mattered. This wasn't just another Sunday political program. The interview came at a time when political conversations about 2027 are already gathering momentum. Peter Obi discussed insecurity, governance, the economy, his record in Anambra State, coalition politics, and why he believes Nigeria needs a different direction. He also criticized President Tinubu's communication with the public and argued that Nigerians should hear more directly from their elected leader. Seun Okinbaloye also asked difficult questions. Some viewers thought Obi answered them well. Others felt some answers were too long or indirect. As with almost every major political interview, people saw different things depending on their expectations, and that's perfectly normal. Now to the presidency's response. The interview didn't end on television. The real battle began afterwards. Senior presidential aide Bayo Onanuga described the appearance as a PR disaster, arguing that Obi made inaccurate claims and that the interview failed to improve his political standing. That's a strong statement, but it's also worth remembering something important. Political communication is never one-sided. Governments defend their record, opposition figures criticize government spokespersons respond. That's how democratic politics works. Every major interview becomes part of a wider contest over public opinion. But was the interview really a PR disaster? That's where things become interesting. What exactly defines a public relations disaster? Is it having critics attack you? Probably not. Every major politician is criticized. Is it making mistakes during an interview? Even experienced politicians occasionally do. Or is it losing public confidence? That's much harder to measure. Social media certainly exploded after the interview. There were clips, counter clips, fact checks, supporters defending Obi, critics attacking him, independent analysts examining specific claims. But social media discussions don't always translate directly into how voters think. Political engagement online often amplifies the voices of people who are already highly invested. At this stage in the discourse, interviews matter less than before, and here's why. One of the biggest changes in politics worldwide is this: people increasingly judging leaders through their overall impression rather than a single interview. Many voters already have established views long before election campaigns officially begin. Confirmation bias also plays a role. Supporters often interpret interviews positively. Opponents often interpret the same interview negatively. The same sentence can produce two completely different reactions. We've seen this happen across democracies around the world. That doesn't mean interviews don't matter. They do, but they rarely transform deeply held political opinions overnight. There's a much bigger question facing Nigeria. Perhaps the most important discussion isn't whether Peter Obi won or lost one interview. The larger question is, what issues will actually determine the 2027 election? Will voters focus primarily on economic conditions, cost of living, employment, security, electricity, infrastructure, healthcare, education, or leadership style? Historically, elections tend to revolve around issues that affect people's daily lives. Television interviews can shape narratives, but lived experience often shapes voting behavior more strongly over time. That's why political parties invest heavily not only in media appearances, but also in convincing voters that their policies or their record address the country's most pressing concerns. The problem we currently have with the ruling party is their approach to the opposition. They often tend to attack opposition personalities instead of pitching their performances and their achievements to the electorate. As usual, that's what we got in APC's reaction to Peter Obi's interview. This is not going to help their position, and this is not going to convince voters to re-elect them. In conclusion, whether you believe Peter Obi performed brilliantly or whether you think he could have answered some questions differently, one interview alone is unlikely to settle the political conversation. The presidency clearly considered it important enough to issue a detailed response. Supporters saw reassurance, critics saw weaknesses, and many undecided Nigerians will probably continue watching what all political actors do over the coming months, rather than making judgments based on a single TV appearance. Ultimately, elections are decided not by headlines from one weekend, but by how voters assess competing visions, records, policies, and leadership when the time comes to cast their ballots. The conversation about 2027 has clearly begun, but it's still a long road from political interviews to election day. If you enjoyed this discussion, leave a comment below. Do you think televised interviews still have the power to change political fortunes? Or have Nigerians already made up their minds long before campaign season begins? Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more political analysis, and I'll see you in the next episode.